What's up? Jason here. I haven't done a running journal video for some time now, but I wanted to come to you today because I thought it was a great lesson. Just finished up my almost 18-mile run. It's just now the high of 43 today, which is too cold for me. I know my northern friends are laughing, but I'm a Texan now. Whew, it's windy. I don't know if you can hear the wind blowing across there. Oh, I bundled up and decided to run outside. I thought about, I saw the forecast that it was going to be in the 20s today, and in the afternoon it'd finally warm up above 40. And I thought about going to the gym and running on the treadmill because obviously that'd be warmer. But if you heard my recent podcast, I talked about how ministry is like a marathon. And one of the things about running a marathon is it takes more mental toughness than I think people realize. Yes, it takes physical toughness. Just like being in ministry takes kind of a spiritual toughness, a spiritual maturity, a spiritual strength. It also takes physical. It takes mental. And I think the same thing with the marathon, except for yes, it does begin with physical toughness, strength, ability, but it goes into mental toughness, strength, and ability also. And as I was talking to some people this week about resilience, and I was reading a book, and it was talking about that when young people are in despair or on the verge of depression, anxiety, that one of the skills they need to learn, yes, there's some healing, yes, there's some things you can do to be seen and be heard, but they have to develop grit. And listen to the dog that's barking. It reminds me of also another saying that we said this week as we were going through some trials, is that the dogs bark, but the train rolls on. In other words, part of mental toughness, a part of focus, a part of grit, a part of resilience, which Dr. Tim Elmore says is one of, if not the number one determining factor amongst millennials and Gen Z and every generation to determine are they going to be successful or not. It's not how smart you are. It's not how, even gifted you are, how talented you are. It's like, do you have resilience? And I think that mental toughness, resilience, and grit, and while they all mean something a little different, I think they're all related in a sense that it's developing that muscle. And as I was talking to someone about resilience this week and doing some counseling, I said, they had rated low on this test and resiliency, not too low, but low enough where it could be a flag for them. And I said, what you need to learn to do is you need to learn to hear no from one another. It was a marriage type situation. You need to learn to deal with the disappointments of not getting your way. And what do you do when things don't go your way? And what do you do when things don't go as you expected? That is one of the ways that you develop the muscle of mental toughness, of grit, of resilience. And that is not to say that if we're struggling mentally, sometimes we get that confused. It's like, hey, if I'm struggling with a mental battle, all I need to do is just have grit and push through it. That's not what I'm talking about. There's too much of that in our world of, belittling that. So that's not exactly what I'm talking about. If you need help in that arena, get help. Find a counselor, talk to a pastor, talk to a spiritual director, talk to a therapist. But mental toughness is about dealing with disappointment. It's about dealing with adversity. It's about dealing when things aren't idea. They don't go your idea. So you say, how does that relate back to what you're talking about? Is this was not my idea to be out in the cold. And so I said, man, I want to get out and I want to run. when it's a little bit colder than I want it to be, where the wind is in my face and I don't really have enough layers because I live in Texas, and I have all that stuff to run in the cold when it's only like this a few days a year. But it helps develop that grit and I'm not going to quit. It helps develop that resiliency to say, I'm going to face that adversity. It helps to have that mental toughness to say, I'm tougher than the cold. And on top of that, not only did I run out here in the cold, for me, in the wind, for me, is I didn't run. Normally I do my long runs on a flat trail that goes through the middle of town. It's right next to a creek bed. And it's very flat and has very little rise and very little fall. But I went to my neighborhood and the neighborhood surrounding, and I ran the biggest hills. I wish I didn't, but part of me is glad I did. I wish I didn't run those hills, but a part of me is glad I did. I wish I didn't run with this cold outside, but part of me is now glad that it's over, that 3-hour run is over, because no one can take that toughness away from me. No one can take that resilience. No one can take the lesson of overcoming and the joy of conquering from me. And my encouragement for you is, whatever you're facing and whatever battles you're facing of disappointment, whatever battles you're facing of adversity, whatever battles you're facing of, hey, things aren't going my way, I encourage you, push through, learn to deal with disappointments. One of the things I think I love about my Pastor Aaron said to a guy who we're kind of trying to bring along and help develop him and help develop, he feels a call to ministry, and we see a call to ministry in him, and we've confirmed that in him and saw and spoke into that and spoke to his future. And we said, he's, trying to figure out, like, how do I develop that? Where do I go from here? What do I do? How do I take my next step? Do I need to go back to school? We said, hey, that's a possibility. But he seems to be a mature believer. He seems to have an understanding of doctrine. But a lot of times that's not what sidelines people. It's that mental toughness. It's that ability to face adversity. It's the grit. It's the resilience. And yeah, there's other things, and we're going to develop that. But as a test, one of the things our pastor told him, Pastor Aaron said, this guy, he said, hey, that's what I want you to do. I want you to get around Pastor Jason, and I want you to just almost start bugging him. And I'm like, thanks, Pastor. That's what I need, people bugging me. But it's so wise. He said, get in situations where he has to tell you no. Like, hey, can I come with you and do that? Hey, can I speak at this? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I thought, how wise is that? The reason that's wise is that's the way. And the reason I resonate with that, I think is a better way to put that. The reason I resonate with that so much is that's the way that I was developed in ministry. The way that I took my steps is going to my pastor with audacity to say, hey, can I speak on Wednesday night? At 16, going to the board of my church at 18 and saying, hey, I know y'all are looking for a pastor, but I think it's me. I have not been to Bible college. I have not done anything, but I think it's me. And they said no. And I had to deal with that disappointment. And I'm glad that I heard no. And it's fast forwarding in ministry, when I thought there was a call that I was supposed to go to a certain place. And I, went and met with that pastor, and he said no. And then I kept begging him, and he still said no. And then years down the road, I realized that's not what I wanted, and God was protecting me. But at the same time, he was building resilience in me, and all the doors that he closed that I was disappointed. But I kept on going. I didn't give up. The doors that got slammed in the face, not just closed, slammed in the face. And, my first mentor pastor telling me, you're not the most talented, Jason. You're not the most gifted. You're not the smartest. But one thing you got is you got grit. You won't let go. You got resilience. You got mental toughness. And as I mentioned in that podcast, you haven't had a chance to check it out, the Quit Pastor podcast, the last one I did is Ministry is a Marathon. And I'm going to expand upon that but I talked about that out of that pastor saying that and all the people that he said it to, or said it in front of, and all the people that were a part of that organization, I was the last one left. And I'm one of the last left in ministry today, actually still preaching the gospel, giving my life for people and the sheep, and laying down my life as a shepherd for God's people, his sheep. So I just encourage you, take a step of mental toughness today. Deal with that disappointment. Don't give up. Keep going. Face that adversity head on. Because at the end of your life, what you start to realize is once you face adversity, is you start to have a trust in God and know that he's with you no matter what. Because that's really what you're doing in mental toughness. It's not that you're strong in yourself. It's that you're strong in your beliefs in him. You're strong in what your thoughts are towards him. And so that's my encouragement for you to do today. Stay strong, face that adversity, face that disappointment, face not getting your way today. I love you. If I can help you, let me know.